Stephen Bedard here, and we are continuing our study on the book of Revelation. If you are watching this video and you haven't seen any of the previous videos, I would encourage you to go back into my YouTube channel and watch the first videos to get some background in what is going on, especially the last video on Revelation chapter 4 as we continue this scene in the divine throne room. And in this chapter, what we see is a scroll that is presented. What is this scroll? Well, it actually isn't completely identified. We don't know for sure what it is. A pretty good guess would be that it is the Lamb's Book of Life. That's as reasonable of a guess as we can have. And we find the scroll is covered in seals, and this is something that people in the ancient world would have been very familiar with. When there was a scroll that was meant for a particular person, seals would be made with hot wax, and they'd be imprinted with a symbol so that there would be assurance that it had not been opened before it got to the person it was supposed to get. And so that's the kind of imagery that is going on here. This seal, these seals on this scroll are not going to be opened until it gets to the person who it needs to get to. And so there is this call. God is holding out the scroll, but an angel makes an invitation or a challenge to see who is it who is able to open the scroll, to break these seals. And it looks as if there's nobody who can do it. And John, who is seeing this vision, begins to panic. He gets quite anxious. There's no one who is able to open it. And then finally someone comes to him and says, it's okay, John. There is one who is worthy to open the scroll. And the one who is worthy is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And this is an image that goes back to Genesis chapter 49, verses 9 and 10, where there's a prophecy about this kingly lion from the tribe of Judah. And that imagery had been applied to Jesus, who was of the tribe of Judah and was a descendant of King David. And so he is that kingly lion. And there's some really interesting contrasting going on here, as Jesus is both the lion and the lamb. So he is that ferocious lion, that royal image, but he is also the gentle lamb. And that's really important because that speaks to the kind of king that Jesus is. Jesus is not one who came to victory by force, but rather by his own death. And the idea of a lamb being slain is found throughout the Bible. When we look to Passover, it is by the blood of the lamb applied to the doorposts that tell the avenging angel to pass over that home and to not bring God's wrath. And other sacrifices of lambs were very important throughout the Old Testament. And it also appears in the New Testament as well. And even though there is some scholarly disagreement as to whether the John of Revelation is the same John as the Gospel, it is clear that there is a connection between Revelation and the Gospel of John, because John in the Gospel is very interested in this idea of the Lamb. It is in the Gospel of John that we have John the Baptist declaring that Jesus is the Lamb that takes away the sin of the world. And it's also in John that we find the emphasis at the crucifixion of Jesus' death being equated with the killing of the lamb for Passover. John makes more of an emphasis of that than the Synoptic Gospels. And so that is a connection that is found there. So Jesus is able to break the seals, not just because he is the Lion of Judah, but because he is the Lamb that was slain. we see that this lamb has 7 horns, and that seems to represent the 7 spirits of God. And it's also a reminder that the way that Jesus was able to be victorious was, again, not by force of arms, not by the ability of humans, but rather by the power of the Spirit. And we're also told that these horns had 7 eyes, which may be a reference to the 7 spirits in Zechariah. We find in this throne room, in response to Jesus being able to open up these seals, a great time of worship. And we find this kind of thing happening over and over again, especially in the Old Testament, where there is an experience in heaven, in the throne room, and angels are worshiping God. And so this is a very familiar image. But then we also see the idea of not just angels worshiping, but all creatures in the heaven and on the earth and under the earth are all worshiping God because Jesus is worthy. It has some numbers in here, which again is really helpful for us to look at when we're trying to interpret Revelation. The number 10,000 in Greek was about as high as you could get. It would be like today if we said a bazillion. We're not talking about a literal number of bazillion, whatever that might be. We're just saying like a whole bunch. And 10,000 would be what that is. But here it actually literally says 10,000 times 10,000, which is not meant to come up with a literal number. It's all about saying it is a number beyond what we can count. It's innumerable, the number of angels that are worshiping God. And so that's another reminder that we need to be careful in how we interpret numbers when we get to the book of Revelation. And that brings us to the end of chapter 5. And between chapter 4 and chapter 5, they have prepared us for what is coming. We're going to see that we have been prepared to look at what is going to be happening with the seals and the trumpets and the vials. All of those things are what is about to happen, and we are prepared to see how God is going to work in the world to bring his victory. Thank you for watching this. I hope you visit my website, stephenjbedard.com, and consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you.